From the historic city of Boya, the archbishops and bishops of Cameroon during their 48th annual seminar delivered a hard-hitting communique addressing the socio-economic turmoil plaguing the nation. While many had hoped that the bishops would outrightly call for President Pobia not to run again at the age of 92 when elections take place in Cameroon, the prelates chose a different approach. They addressed the failings of the country under Biya's leadership to pass on their message. Their statement was a combination of spiritual reflection and sharp critique. As such, the bishops did not mince words. The want of a nation on the brink of collapse due to corruption, mismanagement, and rising inequalities. 65 years after independence, Cameroon faces critical hurdles, some of which the bishops address. The standouts are a fragile economy marked by growing social inequality and an overburdened tax system, poor infrastructure and limited access to basic needs like clean water, education and healthcare, persistent insecurity in the northwest, southwest and the far north regions of the country. Through these issues, the bishops acknowledged the growing cries of despair from Cameroonians struggling with poverty, insecurity and despair, a situation they called anxieties transformed into cries of misery. But the question remains, will their words spark action or simply echo into the void? Now, I'll break down the bishop's message into 5 sections, at the end of which you all will decide whether their words can translate into action. The first is corruption and accountability. Perhaps the bishop's most damning critique was reserved for corruption, a cancer they claimed has crept into every sector of the country. In today's communique, they revisited their warnings from 1990, where they denounced what they call the structures of sin, enabling corruption and embezzlement. Now, 35 years later, the situation remains largely unchanged, they said. This message clearly contradicts people who have been claiming that President Paul Biya has done a lot for Cameroon and deserves to continue. While they commended efforts to sanction corrupt officials, they called for more transparency, urging that recovered funds be returned to public treasury. What really stood out, however, was that bishops cited law number 003/2006 of 25th April 2006, which requires all Cameroonians who assume important responsibilities in the service of the nation to declare their assets. Can you imagine a country or a Cameroon where President Pobia and all members of his government have declared their assets? We've never seen that happen in Cameroon, right? Now, the second is the lingering crisis in the Anglophone regions. The bishops also turned their attention to the ongoing conflict in the northwest and the southwest regions. Now, in its 7th year, the bishops challenged the claims by government that there has been progress. They highlighted the continued violence, loss of lives, and economic ruin caused by the crisis. Ghost town operations, guerrilla warfare, and the lingering scars of division have left many asking, who really benefits from prolonging this war? This is a question that many Cameroonians have been asking, as it appears as though both separatists and members of the government are now on the same side, fighting against the ordinary masses, ordinary population. They called for humility and dialogue among the political class, emphasizing that true peace can only emerge from reconciliation, not graveyards. The third is a call to leadership and citizen responsibility. In their communique, the bishops challenged public officials to rise to the occasion. They called for efficient public services, the promotion of education and youth employment, and an end to the exploitation of natural resources by questionable agreements. But they did not stop there. They also turned the spotlight on citizens, reminding Cameroonians that they too bear responsibility for the country's plight. As they put it, I quote, "We are not just victims of the crisis, we are also its causes and agents." Citing President Paul Biya's New Year message, the bishops reminded that he acknowledged the failings of his government. A clear example is the issues of roads. The bishops asked the question, I'll try to quote them, how can we explain that the year 2024 ended with only 446 kilometers of asphalted roads and 228 kilometers of rehabilitated roads. You know, when figures are involved, it becomes a little bit tricky. Now, the fourth is call to action. Citing Pope Francis and St. Paul, the bishops called on Cameroonians to embrace hope, not a fleeting optimism, but a radical hope rooted in personal conversion and collective responsibility. They emphasized the need for unity, reconciliation, and justice, yet they also made it clear that hope without action is meaningless. They denounced the staggering rates of youth unemployment and widening wealth gap. That is a message that was kept coming over and over again. And also the lack of access to basic needs like healthcare, education, and clean water. The bishops described Cameroon as a nation where the most vulnerable bear the brunt of rising taxes and a system crippled by mismanagement. Finally, their message looks at the prospects ahead. At the dawn of the Jubilee year 2025, the bishops left a clear message. Hope is not an empty word, they said. It's a call to action, a call to conversion and change at every level of the society. For Cameroon to rise, its leaders must govern with integrity. Its citizens must embrace responsibility, and its collective vision must prioritize justice, equity, and progress. As the bishops prayed for divine intervention, they reminded Cameroonians of this truth. God may bless Cameroon, but it is up to Cameroonians to do the work of building the nation worthy of its potential. What do you think about this? Now, the road ahead for Cameroon may be long and full of challenges, but as the bishops have just reminded Cameroonians, change begins with every citizen. On behalf of MMI, thank you so much for watching, and may this year be a turning point for our beloved Cameroon.